would consult certain members of his companions who were more expert in certain areas. So not everybody would be consulted about every single thing, because not everybody is knowledgeable about every single thing. And in fact, this is common sense. I don't know about here in India, but in England, the government does not consult every single individual when it wants to look into some detailed scientific matter that is only understood by a few individuals. What do? They gather those individuals together and they question them about this matter, and then they say, we have consulted the experts and the experts tell us this, and now that becomes our policy. That makes sense. So we had this type of consultative, interactive process that was given to us by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that operated on all different levels of society. This is the way which the Muslims should conduct themselves, with justice, with understanding, with compassion. We should love for our brother what we love for ourselves. All of this means that we need to consult and discuss and share our knowledge amongst each other. But I don't like to call this democracy. I like to call it Islam. Why do we need to say Islam is democratic? For what reason? Because that's the time we're in. We feel we need to adjust our religion to fit this predominant culture and this predominant philosophy that seems to be dominating the world at the moment. But I don't think we need to do that. In fact, I really don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. And I often give an example like this. It might shock you what I'm going to say, but I hope you will think about what I'm going to say. Imagine we live in a society where prostitution is the normal mode by which a man and a woman physically interact with each other. Imagine prostitution is so common that it's the absolute norm. And imagine these prostitutes, when you look at them, they all seem so happy and they seem to be enjoying such a prosperous life. In fact, it seems that this society generally is very prosperous. They're building amazing machines and they have great technology. And so you imagine that because they've got these machines and they've got this technology, prostitution must be a good system as well. You think it all comes together in one big package. So some unfortunate Muslim comes along and says, you know what? We've got prostitution in Islam as well. Yes, we do. It's called nikah. You see, just as you go to the prostitute and you give her money, we go to our wife and we give her mahar. You see, it's like prostitution. And you go, astaghfirullah. How can you compare what Allah revealed and this beautiful way of life with that? Therefore, I find it very sad when Muslims start talking about Islam has democracy. Because to me it sounds like saying Islam has kufr. It's like saying nikah is like prostitution. It's not. And democracy is not like Islam on its philosophical basis. And the only reason that we feel we have to say this is because of the dominance of Western culture intellectually, philosophically and politically. And it's another very stark warning for us. Why do we always feel that we have to accommodate and bend over backwards? And this is something we hear said a lot. Something we hear said a lot. Muslims have to move into the 21st century. Islam has to move and go with the flow. We have to adapt ourselves and change ourselves. As I read in an article recently, if Islam, as we claim, is a way of life for all places and all times, then Islam has to adjust itself for all places and all times. This is another straw man. You build up an argument only to knock it down yourself, but it's not what we claim. We claim that Allah expects us to worship Him and follow His religion to the best of our ability in every place and every time. That does not mean that Islam changes in order to make itself fit. That is not what it means. If modern society conflicts with our religion, you know what I say? Stuff modern society. Stuff it. I need to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How long am I going to be here on this earth? A small amount of time. I don't say, and I'm not saying here, that there is a contradiction. There are many things in modern society that are perfectly compatible with Islam. And there are many things in modern society, actually, they came from Islam originally. And in fact, this is the amazing thing. When we actually study many of the qualities that we find existing in the Western world, when we look at the history, we find that these things already existed in the Islamic civilization. And in fact, the West, or the West took those ideas from us, they implemented them, and we stopped implementing them.
We don't have records that 9/11 was done by Muslims. It is just a hypothesis. Muslims are being targeted. They're called as terrorists. Directly and indirectly, they're the politicians. For the vote bank, for the power, for the money. There's thousands of innocent people that have been killed in Afghanistan. Goes to Iraq. More people are being robbed. More people are being raped. The main purpose is what? Oil. It's an open secret. They're Buddhist terrorists, they're Hindu terrorists, they're Sikh terrorists, they're Jewish terrorists, we have Christian terrorists. Terrorism is not the monopoly of any religion. It is not.
We can take many examples. If you read the writings, for example, of Western observers of Islam who were writing 150 years ago, they were praising how Islam did away with racism, how Islam was a religion that accommodated all races and all peoples. Now we find who is the one leading and stepping forward in eliminating racism. It is America, it is Britain, it is these countries. In their own countries, they are making big efforts to eliminate racism. It's not something they invented. We had that in our religion for for so many hundreds of years. But unfortunately, that is one thing that the Muslims, that we had, and we've lost it. There are many things that we had if we look in our religion. The idea that it doesn't matter what background you are from. You could be the son of a dustbin cleaner, a farm worker, and you could be a scholar, you could be a doctor, you could be an engineer, you could do any career. If we look in history and we search, where does this concept come from? If we look in the West, we find that the West had something very similar to the caste system. They had the feudal system. The feudal system meant that if you were born a peasant, the peasants were called serfs. If you were born a peasant, born a serf, you were a virtual slave to your lord, who was the landowner. You were a virtual slave. You stayed a serf. You were born a serf and you stayed a serf. You were born a merchant, you stayed a merchant. You were born a knight, knighthood stayed in your family. You were born a baron, that stayed in your family. So all of these things were set in concrete. A serf could not become a knight. It couldn't happen. Nor did a knight become a tradesman. Which civilization in the world do we find did not recognize such distinctions? Allowed freedom of movement between people and professions? Islam. This came from Islam. Which civilization, if we look, had a system of justice where it didn't matter what part of society you were from? You could be the leader, you could be a nobleman, you could be from whatever section of society. But the Qari or the judge could bring you in front of him and make a judgment from you, and it didn't matter. This was Islam. We have so many famous stories and so many famous incidents from the life of the companions. And in fact, we can find so many true accounts